In this video, I'm going to tell you the 10 things that absolutely transform my climbing. And it wasn't all coffee. So some of these 10 things are really training related, while others I've sort of picked up at the crag or learning from other people. So number one was not always trying to perform. I think it's really easy to get into the habit of like going to the gym and wanting to do the hardest boulders, or going to the crag and always wanting to get a personal best. One thing that really helped my climbing was having a purpose for every session, but that isn't always to do better than the previous session. So sometimes you're just not fresh and it's still really productive to go and train. You know, it increases your capacity, your ability to sort of fight through fatigue. So yeah, like going and having a purpose to maybe do hard moves, and you might just get shut down the whole session. But you know, if you go with a set goal, then absolutely you can achieve that goal, even if it isn't like a personal best on those boulders or something. So sometimes if I'm feeling really tired, but it's still going to be useful for me to go to a crag, or I'm really psyched to go, what I'll do is I'll maybe pick a route that's like nearby my project or a similar length, and I'll try and do that in a session. So I've still got that challenge and it's still really applicable to my project, but I'm not just hammering myself having a worse session than I have in the past. So number two might be a really unpopular one, but for me, arcing and like low aerobic work really changed the game with my sport climbing. I think just being able to recover on holds and relax as well through moves just made so much difference. So arcing is just really easy climbing, you know, not getting pumped, maybe like a 2 out of 10 pump, so you can feel it a little bit, but really comfortable, getting that blood flow in the forearms, and really good for building that aerobic base. So not only does it help you recover on holds, but also like between attempts and between sessions. So having always been a comp boulderer, I didn't really have that base endurance. So I really struggled going into sport climbing outdoors. So I did a lot of arcing over winter, and I've really noticed it coming into this season, just the amount of volume I can handle in a session, but also just how much I can recover in a rest position. Number three is getting the little things right. So things like staying hydrated at the crag, something I'm terrible at. Having chalk that suits your skin as well. You know, if you've got quite sweaty skin, and having that finer chalk can make quite a big difference. And then things like layers as well, you know, having the right clothes. You know, I get really cold and cannot climb if I'm freezing. So making sure I've like got a thermal in my bag and things like that have made a really big difference. So number four is body tension. So this doesn't just mean training your core, but also just being able to push through your feet and like purposefully think about driving through your feet. I think a lot of it just comes from that intent. So a lot of people might be chucking between holds and think it looks cool to cut loose. But if you just really think about driving through your feet and keeping your feet on, I find that really helps, especially when you get nearer your limit and you need that efficiency. Number five is track your progress. So not only sends outside, but also your training progress as well, and like just keeping a diary or something on your phone that keeps tabs on all these things. So when I'm in like training blocks or something and I feel like I'm not progressing or my confidence is quite low, I quite often go back and like look at my logbook for last year compared to this year, or even just look through, say, my fingerboard scores and have a look at that overall progression over a much longer period of time than just say the 2 weeks where you're feeling a bit rubbish. And I think that always gives me a bit of confidence, and it gives you like the big picture that overall things are really working and moving in the right direction. I think this is especially important, especially when your goals might change a little bit. You know, if I've got a really long sport project, I might be feeling a little bit weaker than I perhaps have been in the past, but I can look through like either routes I've done and see that I've done loads more, or I can look through my fitness sort of scores and see that that's improved. So even if maybe one performance factor's gone down, you know, everything else is going up.
Before we go to Jen's next tip, now might be the perfect time to implement all of these new lessons into your own climbing with a training plan here at Lattice Training. When me and Jen are not making videos like this, we're actually coaching people and we're helping people with their own training journey. We deliver our training plans through our own app, which helps you log and monitor your training. It's going to give you training analytics, which us as coaches are also able to monitor and give you the best possible training plans that we can offer. If you're signed up to our Climbing Training Plan Plus, you're going to get coach communication. So you'll be talking with someone like me or with Jen or another one of our amazing coaches to help guide your training to be as personalized as it possibly can be and troubleshoot your specific questions and training needs. Autumn and winter is on its way, and if you want to be in the best possible shape for these performance seasons, consider signing up to a training plan. A link to that is in the description below.
Number 6 is don't forget to train the boring things. So things like shoulder stability and flexibility. You know, they're quite easy to fit into sessions, but they just seem quite dull, but actually make a huge difference on the wall. You know, a little bit of extra mobility might make it easier just to get that foot a little bit higher onto a better foothold, or having a little bit extra shoulder stability might mean you can lock a little bit further. Number 7 is, that was like vague. I'll just leave my hands. Number 7 is to break down your goals into manageable chunks. So it's really good to be ambitious and have, you know, a really sort of stretch goal. However, that can be quite unmotivating if it just feels like miles off or like you're never going to achieve it. So being able to break it down into chunks of ways to sort of gradually progress towards your goal is then a really motivating way to tick through the smaller goals, and then you sort of get closer and closer to the main goal. So for example, if I say had like an 8C sport climb that I really wanted to do, I might break that down into sort of sections of that sport climb, so really specific goals towards that, of say like doing bolt 1 to 5 in one go. And then I might have a few goals that are sort of easier routes but similar style to tick through, and I might have some training goals in there as well, like if I've got a specific circuit, for example, being able to do 3 reps of it. So then it breaks down into smaller goals that seem a bit more achievable, but also some goals that are more within your control, so sort of things you can achieve at the wall, you know, are really good when the weather might be rubbish or something, so you can actually go and feel like you're really working towards your project. Number 8 is to maintain some training throughout long performance phases. So this is something I really had to learn last year when I was getting out in the UK a bit more. And our maybe peak season starts in May, maybe ends in October. Who knows when it's going to rain. So trying to perform without doing any training is basically impossible. You might burn out by the end. So doing like little bits of top up is really important. So this doesn't need to be super long training sessions or anything, but just some maintenance work. So if you're out sport climbing all the time, doing some short, hard strength sessions could be really vital for keeping that top end. Or if you're out bouldering all the time, doing some longer sessions with a bit more movement variety could be really beneficial. Number 9 is to go to the wall or the crag with a plan. I don't just mean you have to do boring training all the time, but having some like aim to the session. So it could be, oh, you go and climb with your friends at the wall, but then instead of just going aimlessly trying a few random problems, like having a bit of structure or an idea of the goal for the session can be really good in staying focused and motivated. So if there's like a whole new circuit at your boulder gym and you want to go and try them all, I'd maybe set yourself a little target of trying every single one. You know, that gives you lots of movement variety and volume in the session. Or you could say, right, I'm going to try and send 3. And it doesn't really matter if you don't completely achieve these goals, but it really gives your session a bit of direction. Then if we go into the crag, say, to do some sport climbing, I often break my session down into sort of 3 hard efforts on a project and then maybe 2 to 3 goes on something a little bit easier. And that means that I stay focused on my goes on my project, but I don't sort of beat myself up and like hammer myself on it and try and have too many goes. It keeps those sort of 3 goes really productive, and then I lower the grade and get a bit of volume in. Right, so the last one, number 10, probably one you've heard a billion times before, but it's climbing things that aren't your style. So climbing different styles of boulders or routes, you know, you always learn something new. You might learn a new technique, and I think it's really good for like rounding out your profile as well. No doubt things you've learned on climbs that you didn't think would suit you, they'll come in handy when you start pushing your limit. Climbing like a really wide variety of climbs as well really helps keep things balanced. You know, if you're only climbing like vert and slabs, you might get really strong fingers but have really weak biceps. Whereas climbing sort of steep stuff, you might get weaker fingers. So I think just having that broad style really makes you sort of a balanced athlete as well, which can really help with longevity. They were 10 of the standout things that have really helped my climbing, both as like a competition boulder and also an outdoor sport climber. Hopefully some of those things might come in useful to you, or if you've got any other great ideas that have helped you over the years or with your climbing, then please comment below. Thanks for watching. See ya.